Without my stepsister knowing, my brother-in-law raped me, I whispered as his heavy breath pressed against my ear. My body was frozen, tears choking my throat. His hand clamped over my mouth as he hissed the words that would haunt me forever. "If she finds out, I'll kill both of you." The air in the room felt like ice. My stepsister's laughter echoed faintly from the kitchen downstairs, unaware that her husband had turned into a monster right above her head. He tightened his grip, his eyes sharp like a knife, and I realized in that moment that silence was the only way to stay alive. But silence can only last for so long. That night, after the horror he left me with, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying his threat. The words carved themselves into my brain. "If she finds out, I'll kill both of you." His cruelty felt endless, but so did my fear. And still, somewhere deep inside me, a small spark of defiance whispered, "I'll find a way. I'll make a plan." And that plan would change everything. But before I tell you about it, let me step back and introduce myself, because I want you to know the voice behind this story. My name is Sarah. I'm 28 years old and I live in Atlanta, Georgia, USA. This is not just a story. It's my truth, raw and unfiltered. Before I continue, please, if you're watching or listening right now, make sure you hit that subscribe button like this video, and click the notification bell so you won't miss the upcoming chapters of my story. And while you're at it, tell me, where in the world are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. I want to know. Alright, now let's get into it. I never thought my life would twist into such a dark tunnel. Growing up, I was just a regular girl who loved writing in journals and playing with dolls. My mom remarried when I was 16, and that's when I met my stepsister, Emily. She was the kind of girl who lit up every room. Blonde hair, big smile, the type of energy that made people love her instantly. We weren't just stepsisters, we became best friends. Fast forward years later, Emily got married to a man named David. To the outside world, David was charming. He worked in finance, wore nice suits, spoke politely to neighbors, and always carried himself like the perfect husband. But sometimes what looks perfect on the outside is rotten at the core. The first time I ever felt his eyes linger on me, I brushed it off. Emily was in the living room, showing me her new wedding photos, and David stood by the doorway watching. His gaze wasn't that of a brother-in-law, it was sharper, heavier. I told myself I was imagining things. But imagination turned into reality the night Emily invited me to stay over at their house. It was supposed to be fun. A sleepover with my sister, popcorn, movies, and laughter. Instead, it became the night my innocence was stolen. I still remember every second. The house was quiet. Emily had dozed off in her room, her phone glowing dimly on the bedside table. I had gone to the guest room, curling under the blanket when suddenly the door creaked open. It was him. I sat up, startled, but before I could speak he was already across the room, already pressing me down. His hand silenced me, his weight crushed me, and my tears burned as I tried to scream. But no sound came out. And then those words, those cruel, twisted words. "If she finds out, I'll kill both of you." It was the most shocking moment of my life. And I knew from that second onward, I was trapped in a secret darker than any nightmare. But here's the thing about secrets, they fester. They burn in your chest until you either choke on them or let them out. In the days that followed, I tried to act normal. Emily would chat excitedly about plans with her husband, while I sat there, trembling inside. Every smile I gave was fake. Every laugh I forced was hollow. And every time David glanced my way, I felt the ground beneath me shake. But life doesn't stay at one extreme forever. There were quiet moments too, times when Emily and I went shopping, when we baked cookies together, when she confided in me about wanting children. Those moments almost made me forget, almost convinced me to bury the truth forever. But then David's shadow would cross the room, and the nightmare came rushing back. One Sunday, Emily asked me to join them for church. I agreed, trying to keep the bond with her alive. During the service, I looked at David sitting beside her, his hand resting on hers. People around whispered about what a beautiful couple they made. And all I could think was, if only they knew. That's when the lesson started forming in my heart. Not everything you see is real. Some smiles hide screams. Some families hide monsters. And sometimes the person everyone trusts the most is the one you should fear. Still, I held on to silence. I told myself it was safer. But silence has a price. because silence gave him power. And David, he wasn't satisfied with one night. He came again. It was late. Emily had gone to visit our mom, and I was alone in the house. I thought I was safe. I was wrong. His knock was soft at first. Then it turned into the sound of the doorknob twisting. My chest tightened. When he stepped in, I froze. "Remember what I told you," he said, his eyes dark. "If she finds out, I'll kill both of you." That was the moment I realized I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't keep letting him take pieces of me. And that's when the spark inside me grew stronger. I needed a plan. But what plan could protect me from a man who promised death? What plan could shield my sister from the truth that could shatter her world? The answer was dangerous. And it all began the night I made the first move. That night after he left my room, I lay in the dark, trembling but awake. My whole body felt like it wasn't mine anymore. But my mind was awake with fire. His words kept echoing. "If she finds out, I'll kill both of you." Fear was there, yes. But so was something else. A whisper inside me that said, "You can't keep letting this happen. You need a plan." The next morning I acted normal. I came down to breakfast, greeted Emily with a smile, and even laughed at her silly jokes. David sat across the table, sipping his coffee like he was the most innocent man in the world. His eyes brushed against mine, daring me to speak. I looked away. I had to play smart. Days passed and I started paying attention. To his habits. To the way he moved. When he left for work. When he came home. I noted every detail, hiding my observations like jewels in my pocket, because one day I knew I would use them. Still, the silence was crushing. Emily kept dragging me into her happy world, talking about baby names, about how David wanted a son. My chest burned every time. She didn't know the truth, and I couldn't tell her, not yet. Not when her life was in danger. But I tried to distract myself. I went to the park. I read books. I even started writing in a diary again, something I had stopped doing for years. My diary became the only place I could scream without being heard. Every night, I wrote what he did, how I felt, how much I wanted freedom. It was my secret weapon. Because one day, I thought, if I don't survive this, at least my story will. One evening, Emily invited me into the kitchen while she was making pasta. She turned to me suddenly and asked, "Sarah, are you okay? You've been quiet lately." My heart jumped. For a split second, I wanted to tell her everything. But then just as quick, David walked in. His eyes locked on mine, sharp and warning. I swallowed the truth and forced a smile. "Yeah, I lied. Just tired." Emily shrugged and went back to stirring the sauce. But I saw David's lips twitch, just the slightest hint of victory. That night I cried into my pillow. It wasn't just about me anymore. If I told Emily, she might confront him. And if she did, he might do exactly what he promised. Kill both of us. That fear wrapped around me like a rope, tightening every day. Still I kept watching, kept planning. I told myself, one day I'll catch him off guard. And then one night it happened. Emily had fallen asleep early. I was in the living room flipping through channels on the TV. When I heard footsteps behind me, my stomach sank. I turned and there he was. David. But this time he wasn't sneaking. He wasn't whispering. He wasn't pretending to be the perfect husband. This time he walked straight toward me with eyes that burned like fire. "You think you're clever, don't you?" he growled. I froze, my heart slamming against my ribs. What are you talking about?" I stammered. He leaned close, his voice low but sharp. "I know you've been watching me. Writing. Planning. If you ever try to play games with me, I'll make sure Emily finds your body before the police do." His words sliced through me. He knew. Somehow he knew. And at that moment I realized, my secret wasn't as safe as I thought. "You think you're clever, don't you?" David's words rang in my ears like thunder. His eyes pinned me to the couch as though he could see through my skin, see into the beating of my heart. My throat went dry, my chest felt hollow, and yet my diary, the one place I had hidden my truth, flashed through my mind. What do you mean?" I whispered, praying my voice didn't tremble too much. David leaned closer, his breath hot and foul against my face. "Don't play dumb, Sarah. I've seen the way you look at me. I know you've been keeping things." He smirked, a cruel curve of his lips. If Emily ever finds anything at all, you won't live to see another sunrise. Neither will she. He straightened up, his tone shifting like the flick of a knife from threat to fake calm. Now, he said, brushing invisible dust from his shirt. Smile at me like the good little sister-in-law you are. Emily must never suspect. And then, just like that, he walked away, leaving me shaking on the couch. My whole body felt heavy. My thoughts raced. Did he know about the diary? Had he touched it? Had he read the words I wrote in the secrecy of night? I ran upstairs the moment the coast was clear, flung open the drawer under my bed where I kept it hidden, and pulled the small brown book into my hands. My fingers trembled as I flipped through the pages. Every word was still there. My cries. My fear. My hatred. My vow to one day make a plan. He hadn't taken it. At least not yet. I clutched it against my chest, tears burning my eyes. God, please help me, I whispered. What do I do? For days, I lived in silence again, but this time it wasn't just fear, it was paranoia. Every step David took in the house, I heard it louder than normal. Every look he gave me felt like a secret message. I'm watching you. I started hiding my diary in different places, inside pillowcases, in the bathroom cabinet, even once in a shoebox in the garage. But no matter where I hid it, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still one step ahead. Meanwhile, Emily carried on blissfully unaware. She invited me shopping, asked me to taste her new recipes, giggled when David kissed her cheek in front of me. Sometimes I wanted to scream at her, tell her to open her eyes, to see the monster she was living with. But then I remembered his words. If she finds out, I'll kill both of you. So I swallowed my truth, buried it deep inside me like a coffin that no one could open. But silence is poison. And the more I swallowed, the more it burned me alive. One evening, I was alone in my room, curled up with my diary, writing furiously. I didn't hear the door until it creaked. My pen froze mid-sentence. Sarah? Emily's voice broke the silence. I slammed the book shut, heart pounding. Yeah. She stepped in, smiling softly. You always look so serious when you're writing. What's that? A diary. Panic lit up my chest. Oh no. Just notes. Ideas. You know me, I like scribbling things down. Emily tilted her head, studying me with those warm eyes that had always been my comfort. Well, whatever it is, it must be important. You guard it like treasure. She laughed lightly, then shrugged. Anyway, just wanted to say good night. When she left, I sat there shaking. She almost saw it. She almost knew. But as I sat there in the silence of my room, a thought bloomed in my mind. Maybe that was the answer. Maybe one day when the moment was right, she would be the one to read it. Maybe that was how the truth would come out, not from my lips, but from the pages I wrote with trembling hands. Still, I had to be careful. Too careful. For the next week, I tried to avoid David as much as possible. If he was in the living room, I stayed in the kitchen. If he entered the kitchen, I left. Emily noticed my strange behavior but didn't press me too hard. She thought I was just moody. But David noticed. He always noticed. One night, I was in bed when I felt a shadow fall across my face. My eyes snapped open, and there he was, leaning against the doorframe, his silhouette dark and heavy. You can't avoid me forever, he whispered, his voice slithering into the dark like a snake. Don't forget what I said. And then he was gone. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake until morning, every nerve in my body burning. The next day, Emily begged me to go out with her. Let's go get ice cream like we used to, she said, her smile bright and hopeful. I couldn't say no. She didn't deserve my shadows. She deserved laughter. So I went with her. And for a while it felt normal. We walked down the street, cones in hand, talking about old times. I almost forgot the monster waiting at home. Almost. But when we returned, David was sitting in the living room, watching us walk through the door. His eyes found mine, and a smirk played at his lips. And suddenly my stomach dropped. Because on the coffee table, in plain sight, lay my diary. My legs turned to stone. My throat closed. Emily hadn't noticed it yet. She was busy kicking off her shoes, humming to herself. But I knew. I knew in that instant, David had found it. And he wanted me to know that he had. My entire body went cold as I walked past the table, my eyes fixed on the little brown book that held every secret I thought I could keep. What was he going to do with it? My diary sat on the coffee table like a ticking bomb. Its brown cover looked ordinary, but inside were the words that could tear my world apart. My confessions. My cries. My proof. Emily walked past it without a second glance, humming as she carried her shopping bags into the kitchen. But David sat in the armchair, his eyes locked on me, a cruel smile curling across his face. "You dropped something," he said softly, his tone sharp as broken glass. My heart thundered. I forced a smile, trying to act natural, though my legs felt like they might give way. "Oh, thanks," I whispered, reaching for the diary with a shaky hand. But before my fingers touched it, David's hand shot out and landed on top of it. His grip was firm, deliberate. His eyes drilled into mine. "Careful," he murmured, his lips curling into a smirk. "You wouldn't want anyone reading what's in here." I froze, every muscle in my body tense. Emily's voice floated from the kitchen. "Sarah, do you want some tea?" I swallowed hard, tearing my gaze from him. "Why, yeah, sure," I stammered. David leaned closer, his breath brushing my ear. "One word. One hint. And this book becomes your death sentence." Then, just as Emily returned with 2 mugs of steaming tea, he released the diary and leaned back in his chair, his face smooth and calm like nothing had happened. I snatched the book quickly, clutching it against my chest as I sat beside my sister. My hand shook so badly that some of the tea spilled onto my lap, but I forced myself to laugh it off. Emily didn't notice the storm raging inside me. She never did. Later that night, when I was finally alone, I opened the diary and flipped through the pages. Nothing was missing. Nothing was torn. But he had touched it. He had read it. My deepest fears weren't secrets anymore. They were weapons in his hands. Tears blurred my vision as I thought, he owns me now. Every word I wrote belongs to him. For the next few days I lived in terror. Every time Emily laughed with him I felt sick. Every time he looked at me across the room my chest tightened. He didn't have to say anything. Just the knowledge that he had my diary was enough. But silence doesn't last forever. One evening Emily and I were sitting in her room painting our nails. She giggled, telling me a silly story from work. For a moment the world felt light again. Then she turned serious. "Sarah," she said softly, "is something wrong? You've been so distant lately. I feel like I'm losing my sister." The words stabbed me. My throat tightened. I wanted to tell her. I wanted to scream everything. But the memory of David's threat, his whisper, his smirk, his hand on the diary, choked me into silence.
Infine I lead, forcing a smile.
"Just stress, that's all." She studied me for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay, but you know you can tell me anything, right?" I nodded, but inside my soul screamed, "Not this. I can't tell you this." That night as I lay in bed I realized something. Hiding my truth was no longer enough. My diary was no longer safe. My silence was no longer protection. If I didn't act soon, David would destroy me completely. And then it happened. I woke up to the sound of a drawer opening. My eyes fluttered open and my blood ran cold. David was in my room. The moonlight spilled across his face as he rifled through my belongings. His hand landed on the diary, half hidden under my pillow. He turned and looked at me, his smile wicked. "You should really learn how to hide things better," he whispered. The moonlight cut through the curtains, silver and sharp, casting David's shadow long across my room. My breath caught in my throat as his fingers closed around the diary beneath my pillow. The book that carried every secret, every scream I couldn't let out. "You should really learn how to hide things better," he whispered, his voice curling with mockery. I bolted upright, clutching the blanket against my chest like it could shield me from his evil. "Put it back," I hissed, my voice trembling, barely a thread of sound. He chuckled low, opening the cover, flipping through the pages. My words, my pain, sprawled across the paper, now in his hands. "Let's see," his eyes skimmed, and my heart pounded so hard I thought it would wake Emily from down the hall. "Oh, this is good." The night he touched me, I wanted to die. "Stop," I cried, tears spilling before I could stop them. Please stop. He snapped the book shut and leaned in close, his face inches from mine. His eyes glowed with cruelty. If Emily ever sees this, it won't just break her heart, it'll end her life. And yours. I shook my head, sobbing. Why are you doing this? Because I can, he whispered, his voice sharp like a knife. Because you're weak. And because you won't say a word. You're too scared. He tucked the diary under his arm like it belonged to him now. This little book, it's mine. And then he left, his footsteps fading into the hall, leaving me gasping for air, my body shaking. I buried my face into the pillow, sobbing into the silence of the night. I wanted to scream, to run, to smash something. But the house was sleeping, and silence was my prison. The next morning, Emily greeted me cheerfully at the breakfast table, humming while she buttered toast. David sat at the head, sipping his coffee, the diary sitting on the chair beside him like a quiet reminder. My eyes locked on it, but I couldn't move. My chest was tight. Sarah, Emily chirped. I was thinking we could go shopping today. There's this boutique downtown. She's busy, David interrupted, his eyes never leaving mine. Aren't you, Sarah? I swallowed hard. Y. I'm busy. Emily frowned, confused. Busy with what? You didn't say. She has things to handle. David cut her off, his voice final, his gaze pressing down on me like a threat. Emily shrugged, though her face was clouded with questions. She didn't push further. That entire day my head spun. My diary was no longer mine. My truth was no longer safe. David had all the power now, and I was drowning in fear. But there were moments, small moments, when the weight lifted. Like when Emily dragged me to the park later that week, insisting I needed fresh air. She laughed as we sat by the fountain, tossing pennies into the water. Make a wish, she said, smiling. I stared at the coin in my hand. My wish. Freedom. Safety. A world without David. I dropped the coin, the ripple spreading across the water, and smiled faintly. Emily didn't know what I wished for. She thought I was fine. But inside I was falling apart. At night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, haunted by the image of David reading my words, his smirk growing with every line. Sometimes, I pressed my hands against my ears, as though that could block out the memory of his whispers. And yet a thought began to grow. If he thought the diary was his weapon, maybe it could become mine. I started writing again, but carefully. I wrote as though he were reading every word. I slipped hints between the lines, things he wouldn't catch but Emily might if she ever saw it. I turned my diary into a double-edged sword. A confession for me, a trap for him. But I had to move slowly. Too fast and he would catch me. Too bold, and he would destroy me. One evening, Emily and I were folding laundry together. She held up one of David's shirts, laughing. He's so picky with his clothes. I can't believe I married such a perfectionist. I forced a laugh, though the sound cracked in my throat. Yeah, perfectionist. Her eyes lingered on me. Sarah, you've been off lately. Is it David? Did he say something to you? My blood froze. I looked at her, my lips parting, ready to spill everything. But then the sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway. David appeared in the doorway, leaning casually against the frame. His smile calm but his eyes sharp. Everything okay here? He asked. I swallowed the words, choking on silence. Yeah, I said quickly. Just tired. Emily frowned but nodded. David's eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he walked away. That night I lay awake again, staring at the ceiling, the weight of my silence crushing me. I thought of Emily's face, her concern, her kindness. She didn't deserve this. She didn't deserve to live beside a monster. And then it hit me. Maybe my plan wasn't about saving myself. Maybe it was about saving her. But how? Days blurred together. I pretended to smile. I forced myself to eat. I tried to act normal. But inside I was planning, waiting for the right moment. And then one night it happened. I was in the kitchen pouring a glass of water when I heard a thud upstairs. A sharp, heavy sound. Then another. Then Emily's voice, raised, frightened. My heart stopped. I dropped the glass, water spilling across the floor as I bolted for the stairs. When I reached the hallway, I froze. David was standing in their bedroom doorway, his hand wrapped tight around Emily's arm. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with fear. "David!" I screamed, my voice shaking. He turned, his grip still iron on Emily. His face twisted into something darker than I had ever seen before. "You should have kept your mouth shut," he growled. Emily looked at me, confusion and terror mixing in her eyes. "Sarah, what's going on?" I couldn't breathe, because in that moment I knew. My silence had bought us time, but time had run out. "David, let her go." My voice cracked as I stood frozen in the hallway, my chest heaving. Emily winced under his grip, her eyes darting between us. "What's happening? Why is he, Sarah? What's going on?" David's gaze cut into me like a blade. "Not a word," he hissed, his jaw tight. His fingers dug deeper into her arm. I took a step forward, my legs trembling. "Emily, just come here. Please." But David yanked her closer to him, his voice dripping with venom. "She doesn't need to hear anything from you. Do you, Emily? I've been telling you your sister's been unstable. This is what I mean, look at her." Emily's face paled. "Sarah, unstable? What's he talking about?" Tears blurred my vision. My silence had fed him this power. He had built a story around me, painted me as the crazy one while I stayed mute. And now Emily was caught in his trap. "Don't listen to him," I cried. "He's lying. Please, Em, you have to believe me." David's voice boomed over mine, smooth and commanding. "You see? She's hysterical. She's been writing strange things, Emily. You wouldn't believe the story she puts in her diary." My stomach dropped. He had told her about the diary. Emily's brow furrowed. "Her diary? What does that have to do with?" "Everything," David cut in, his grip tightening. "She's jealous. Obsessed. She's been making things up about me. I told you she was fragile." "No." I screamed, the sound ripping from my throat. "Emily, it's not lies." "Enough," David roared, his face twisted with fury. "One more word, and I swear." Emily flinched, pulling slightly from his hold. "David, you're hurting me." That small crack gave me hope. Her voice wavered. She was starting to see it, the monster behind the mask. I stepped forward again, my heart hammering. "Emily, look at me. You've known me since we were 16. You know me. Do you think I would ever lie to you about something this serious?" Her eyes locked on mine, confusion swirling with fear. She wanted to believe me. I could see it. But David's grip pulled her back into doubt. "Don't let her poison you," he whispered into her ear, his voice low but deadly. "If she says another word, I'll make her regret it." Emily gasped, her face paling further. She had heard it. She had heard the threat meant for me. And for the first time, I saw her eyes widen not with confusion, but with fear of him. I felt the shift in the air. Emily knew something was wrong now. She didn't say it out loud, but her trembling lips, her shaking shoulders, her darting gaze told me she was finally beginning to see the truth. But then David's eyes met mine again, dark and wild. His free hand reached behind his back, and my blood turned to ice. Because when it came back into view, he was holding a knife. The blade caught the dim light, flashing cold and sharp as David lifted it between us. My breath snagged in my chest. Emily's scream tore through the silence, high-pitched and trembling. "David, what are you doing?" she cried, her body twisting, trying to break free from his grip. But his arm was like iron around her. His eyes, once the charming blue that had fooled everyone, were now wild dark, filled with something unrecognizable. "Don't make me do this," he growled, his voice low and steady, as though he had already made up his mind. His gaze locked on me. "One word from you, Sarah, and this ends badly for both of you." The knife glistened. I froze, my body trembling, but my mind screamed at me to move, to say something, to do something, anything. But fear chained me to the spot. My sister's life dangled by a thread, and I was powerless. Emily's eyes darted between us, tears spilling freely now. "Sarah, what's happening? Why is he?" "Shut up," David barked, shaking her. The knife edged closer to her side. "No," I cried, stumbling forward, hands out as if I could shield her with nothing but air. "Don't touch her. Please, David, stop this. You don't have to do this." He sneered, his lips curling. "You don't get it, do you? This is what happens when people don't know their place. You should have stayed quiet. You should have kept your little thoughts to yourself. His words sliced through me as deeply as any blade. He was right about one thing. I had stayed quiet. I had swallowed my screams, buried my truth, let him grow into this monster. My silence had fed him. And now my sister was paying the price. I tried to steady my voice, though it shook. Emily, listen to me. You need to stay calm. He feeds on fear. David's eyes narrowed. What did I say about talking? He pressed the knife closer, the tip grazing Emily's skin. She gasped, stiffening in his arms. Please. I begged, my knees nearly buckling. Don't hurt her. Take me instead. Whatever you want. Just leave her out of this. He laughed, a sound that chilled me to the bone. Take you? You think you're not already mine? Everything you've written in that diary proves it. You belong to me. Both of you do. Emily's face twisted in shock. What? David, what are you talking about? What diary? Her gaze shot to me, confusion mingling with terror. She wanted answers. But this wasn't the moment to unravel it all. Not with the knife gleaming inches from her ribs. I shook my head, tears blurring my vision. Emily, please trust me. He's not who you think he is. Don't listen to her. David roared, shaking her so hard she cried out. She's been lying. She's sick. Obsessed. She's been writing stories about me. Ugly lies. She wants to ruin us. The lies spilled from his mouth so smoothly, so convincingly, that for a terrifying moment, I saw doubt flicker in Emily's eyes. My stomach twisted. What if she believed him? What if, even now, she chose him over me? But then I saw it, the way she looked at the knife, the way her body recoiled from his touch. She wasn't blind anymore. She might not have understood the full truth, but she knew something was terribly wrong. David, let me go, she shouted, her voice trembling but stronger now. His grip tightened. You're not going anywhere. I took another step forward, my hands raised. My mind raced. What could I do? I was unarmed, trembling, weak. But Emily's life hung in the balance. Please, I whispered, locking eyes with him. You don't want to do this. His gaze flickered for a second, just a second, and I saw something: hesitation, doubt, or maybe just calculation. But then his expression hardened. Enough. He shoved Emily toward the bed, the knife still in his hand. She stumbled, catching herself on the mattress, her breath ragged. Sit, he ordered, his voice cold. Emily obeyed, her body shaking, her eyes locked on the weapon. David turned to me then, stepping closer, the knife gleaming. And you, he said softly, dangerously. You've caused all this. And now you're going to fix it. My throat closed. How? You're going to tell her, he said, nodding toward Emily. You're going to tell her everything. But not your lies. You're going to say what I tell you to say. My stomach twisted. He wanted me to rewrite the truth. To paint myself as unstable, obsessed, broken. I won't, I whispered, my voice breaking. His face darkened, his grip tightening on the knife. Then she dies. Emily gasped, her voice shaking. David, stop. You're scaring me. He turned on her, his face twisted with rage. You don't know the half of it. The knife hovered, the air heavy with danger. My body moved before my mind caught up. I lunged forward, grabbing his arm. The knife clattered against the wall, but his strength overpowered me. He shoved me hard, and I crashed to the floor, pain shooting through my side. Sarah, Emily screamed. I scrambled to my knees, gasping, while David retrieved the knife, fury blazing in his eyes. He raised it high, his voice a snarl. You should have kept your mouth shut. Emily leapt from the bed, grabbing his arm. Stop. Please, she cried, tears streaming down her face. For the first time, his attention faltered between us. His grip wavered, torn between rage and control. And in that moment I realized, this might be our only chance. But before I could act, the front door slammed shut downstairs. A voice called out. Emily? Sarah? You home? My heart lurched. It was Mom. The sound of Mom's voice sliced through the air like a bell in a storm. Emily? Sarah? You home? David froze, his knife still raised, his chest heaving. For the first time that night, fear flickered in his eyes. His mask cracked. Emily's voice trembled. And Mom's here. David spun toward her, his face twisted. Not a word, he hissed. If either of you says anything, I swear this knife will finish what it started. My heart pounded. Mom's footsteps echoed up the hallway, closer with each second. I glanced at Emily. Her lips trembled, but her eyes burned with something new, defiance. For the first time I saw her silently begging me. We have to do something. Mom's hand touched the doorknob. Girls, she called again. Why's it so quiet up here? David shoved the knife behind his back, forcing a smile onto his face just as the door creaked open. There you are, Mom said, stepping inside. Her eyes lit up at first, but the brightness quickly dimmed as she took in our pale faces, the way Emily's arm bore red marks from his grip, the way I sat on the floor clutching my side. Is everything okay? She asked slowly, suspicion creeping into her tone. David's smile widened unnaturally. Everything's fine, Mrs. Allen. Just a little family misunderstanding. Her brow furrowed. Misunderstanding. She looked between us. Sarah? Emily? I opened my mouth, but David's stare cut through me like the blade he hid. My words died in my throat. Emily's lips parted, then closed again, fear chaining her silence too. Mom's eyes narrowed. She wasn't convinced. She stepped further into the room, her gaze sweeping over us. Why are you shaking? She asked Emily softly. Then her attention snapped to David. And why are you here, David? Emily said she was studying. He chuckled lightly, but sweat glistened on his forehead. Oh, I just dropped by to check on them. You know, looking out for family. Her frown deepened. Family doesn't leave bruises. She pointed to Emily's arm. Emily flinched, quickly trying to cover the marks, but it was too late. Mom had seen. David's smile faltered. The room thickened with silence. Then Mom's voice sharpened. What's going on here? The knife slipped from behind his back, flashing into view again. Mom's eyes widened. Mom, look out! I screamed. But David was already moving, his hand tightening around the handle. His mask of charm shattered completely, leaving only raw, vicious rage. He lunged forward. David lunged, the knife glinting in the dim light. Mom, look out! I screamed, my voice breaking. Everything seemed to move in slow motion. Mom's eyes widened, her body twisting just as David's arm swung down. The blade sliced through the air, missing her chest by inches and grazing her sleeve. The fabric tore, leaving a thin line of red across her arm. She gasped in pain, stumbling backward, but before she could fall, Emily leapt forward and shoved David with all her strength. Get away from her! Emily cried, her voice raw. David staggered, nearly losing his grip on the knife, but he recovered quickly, his face twisting into something monstrous. You little! I didn't think. My body just moved. I lunged at him, grabbing his wrist with both hands, trying to push the knife away. His strength was crushing, his muscles straining as he fought me off. The cold steel trembled inches from my face. You should have stayed quiet, Sarah, he snarled, spittle flying. I told you what would happen if she found out. Mom clutched her bleeding arm, her face pale but determined. David, stop this madness. Drop the knife. But he didn't stop. He pressed harder, his arm trembling with rage, the blade pressing closer to my cheek. My arms burned, every muscle screaming as I tried to push back. Emily grabbed his other arm, pulling with all her might. Let it go, she yelled, her voice breaking with desperation. For a moment, the three of us struggled, a tangled knot of fear, sweat, and raw survival. The knife jerked left, then right, dangerously close to slicing someone. Then David shoved hard, throwing us off balance. Emily tumbled backward onto the bed, gasping. I fell to the floor, pain exploding in my shoulder. David towered over us, chest heaving, the knife gleaming in his grip. His eyes were wild, his face contorted with fury. You ruined everything. All of you. He turned toward Mom, who was clutching her arm, blood dripping onto the carpet. And you, he growled. You should have stayed out of it. No. I screamed, scrambling to my feet. Don't you dare touch her. He raised the knife, stepping toward her. Panic surged through me like fire. I couldn't let him. Not her. Not Mom. My eyes darted around the room, desperate. And then I saw it, the heavy lamp on the nightstand. Without thinking, I lunged for it, my fingers closing around the base. "Leave her alone," I shouted, swinging with every ounce of strength left in me. The lamp crashed against his shoulder with a sickening thud. He staggered, the knife slipping from his grasp and clattering onto the floor. Emily screamed, diving forward. She kicked the knife under the bed, out of his reach. David roared, clutching his shoulder. His face was twisted with rage, veins bulging in his neck. "You think you can stop me?" I dropped the broken lamp, my chest heaving, my arms trembling. "Yes," I whispered, more to myself than to him. "We can." For a moment, silence fell. Only our ragged breaths filled the room. Hope flickered faintly in my chest. Maybe it was over. Maybe we had finally. But then David lunged again, his hands closing around Emily's throat. "No!" I screamed, rushing forward, clawing at his arms. Emily's eyes bulged, her hands flailing as she tried to pry his fingers away. Her gasps grew faint, her lips turning blue. Mom, despite her wound, stumbled forward and grabbed David's arm, digging her nails into his skin. "Let her go," she shouted, her voice fierce. David snarled, shaking us off like rag dolls. "If she dies, none of you will ever talk again," he hissed. Emily's body convulsed, her legs kicking weakly. My heart pounded, my vision blurred with tears. I couldn't lose her. Not like this. My eyes darted to the bed. The knife was still under there. If I could just... Summoning strength I didn't know I had, I dropped to the floor, reaching blindly beneath the bed. My fingers brushed against the cold handle. I grabbed it, the weight heavy and terrifying in my hand. When I rose, David's eyes locked onto the blade. His grip on Emily faltered for just a moment, shock flashing across his face. "Sarah," he said slowly, his voice low and menacing. "Put it down." My hands shook violently, the knife trembling in my grip. "Let her go, David. Or I swear." He tightened his grip again, Emily choking, her body trembling. "You don't have it in you," he sneered. "You're weak. You always have been." "Sarah," Emily gasped, her voice barely audible. "Please." Something inside me snapped. All the nights of silence, the years of fear, the scars he carved into me. They surged through my veins like fire. "I'm not weak," I whispered. And with that, I stepped forward, raising the knife. But before I could strike, headlights swept across the window. A car door slammed outside. David froze. His grip loosened slightly as his head whipped toward the window. Emily collapsed to the floor, gasping for air, clutching her throat. The sound of heavy footsteps crunched on the gravel outside. Then a firm voice rang out from the front porch. "This is the police. Open up." My blood turned cold. My secret was about to explode into the open, whether I was ready or not. David's eyes widened, his face twisting between rage and panic. He turned toward me, his voice a low growl. "If they come in here," he said, pointing at me with a trembling finger, "I'll make sure you go down with me." Red and blue lights flashed through the curtains, casting shadows across the room. My chest tightened as the police banged on the door again. "This is the police. Open up immediately." David's lips curled into a cruel smile. "Perfect timing," he whispered, his eyes glinting with malice. "Now they'll see exactly what you are." I realized with horror what he meant. The knife shook in my trembling hands, the same knife he had used to terrorize us. But to anyone walking in, it would look like I was the threat. "No," I whispered, backing up. "This isn't what it looks like." Emily coughed violently on the floor, still clutching her throat, her voice hoarse. She's trying to stop him." But David moved quickly, scooping her up by the shoulders as if to shield her. His voice turned smooth again, dripping with false concern. "Officers! In here!" he shouted. "Help us! She's lost it." He pointed at me. My stomach dropped. The front door slammed open downstairs, heavy boots pounding against the floor. Within seconds, 2 officers stormed into the room, guns drawn. "Drop the weapon," one of them barked, his voice firm and commanding. I froze, the knife shaking in my grip. "Wait, it's not me." "He's the one." "Now!" the officer shouted, his aim steady. David clutched Emily tighter, his face a mask of fear. "Please help us," he cried, his voice breaking convincingly. "She's been threatening us all night." Look what she did to Emily. The officer's eyes flicked to Emily's bruised throat, to Mom's bleeding arm, then back to the knife in my hand. No. Mom shouted, stumbling forward, her voice desperate. You don't understand, he's lying. He's the one who… Ma'am, step back, the other officer ordered, keeping his weapon trained on me. Tears streamed down my face. My heart pounded so hard it drowned out everything else. Please, I begged, my voice trembling. He's dangerous. If you believe him, he'll kill us all. The officer's expression hardened. Last warning, drop the knife. I looked at Emily. Her swollen throat, her tear-streaked face. She mouthed one word, trust. My hand shook violently, the blade heavy in my grip. If I dropped it, David could twist everything. But if I didn't, the officers might shoot me. David's smirk widened just slightly, invisible to them but burning into me. He thought he had won. He thought he had trapped me again. My fingers tightened on the handle. And then, a voice rang out from behind the officers. Deep, sharp, commanding. Don't move. Step away from her, David. David froze, his smirk vanishing. I blinked, stunned. Another officer had entered the room, and his gun wasn't pointed at me. It was pointed directly at David. Don't move. Step away from her, David. The officer's voice cracked like thunder through the room, freezing all of us in place. David's eyes widened, his smirk shattering as the reality of the moment hit him. For the first time all night, he looked caught. The two officers who had been aiming at me turned sharply, confusion flashing across their faces. Detective Harris? One of them asked, lowering his gun slightly. Yes, Harris barked, never breaking his aim on David. Step aside. You've got the wrong suspect. My chest rose and fell in sharp bursts. Relief and fear tangled inside me like barbed wire. Someone finally saw the truth. But David wasn't done. I could see it in the way his jaw clenched, his grip tightening on Emily's shoulder. This is insane, David spat, his voice dripping with false outrage. She's dangerous. Look at her, she's the one with the knife. I looked down. The knife still trembled in my hand, the weight of it pulling me down. My fingers felt numb, locked around the handle. Sarah, Harris said firmly, his eyes flicking to me. Drop the weapon. You're safe now. Safe. The word almost broke me. For years I had prayed to hear it, to feel it. But how could I believe it when David was still standing there, his fingers digging into Emily's bruised skin? Emily coughed weakly, her voice hoarse. He's lying, she whispered. It's him. He did this. Mom's voice joined, trembling but fierce. Detective, please, he attacked all of us. Look at my arm. Look at Emily's throat. My daughter isn't the danger, he is. The two officers exchanged uncertain glances. David's mask of innocence faltered further, cracks spreading across the smooth surface he had built for years. Shut up, he barked suddenly, his voice sharp and wild. His grip on Emily tightened as he dragged her closer like a shield. The officers tensed, raising their guns again. Harris's voice cut through, cold and commanding. Let her go, David. Now. David's chest heaved. Sweat dripped from his temple, his eyes darting between the guns trained on him. For the first time I saw fear gnaw at his composure. But then his gaze locked onto me, burning with venom. This is your fault, he hissed. If you had stayed quiet, none of this would be happening. The words sliced through me. But this time they didn't sink as deeply. My throat tightened, but instead of shrinking back, I forced myself to step forward, knife still in hand. No, I said, my voice steady despite my shaking body. This is your fault, David. And I'm done being silent. His face twisted, fury blazing. He shoved Emily hard toward the bed, freeing one hand to reach for me. Stay back. Harris barked. Don't you take another step. David ignored him. His focus was locked entirely on me, as if the officers, the guns, the flashing lights outside, none of it existed. Only me. Only the girl he had broken and silenced. And maybe that was true. For David, this was never about Emily. Never about Mom. It had always been about control. About me. Sarah, drop it. Harris ordered again, his voice sharper now. We'll protect you. Trust me. The knife felt heavy in my hand, but for the first time, I wasn't holding it because of fear. I was holding it because I finally had a choice. My chest rose and fell as my eyes locked with David's. I thought of every night I lay awake in silence. Every bruise hidden under sleeves. Every scream swallowed before it reached the air. I lifted the knife higher. "Sarah, no." Mom cried, reaching for me with her uninjured arm. But David only smirked, his eyes glinting with twisted satisfaction. "Do it," he whispered, daring me. "Prove to them you're exactly what I said you were." The room spun. I could hear Emily's ragged breathing, Mom's frantic cries, the officers shouting orders, but all I saw was him. The monster who had stolen my voice. The nightmare standing in flesh before me. For a second, the weight of the knife pulled me forward. My muscles tightened, my breath caught. But then I stopped. "No," I whispered, tears blurring my vision. "I'm not you." And with trembling hands, I let the knife fall. It clattered loudly against the floor, echoing like thunder. The officers lunged forward instantly, shouting commands. "Hands up, David. Now." David's face twisted in fury as the weapon left my grasp. He roared, pure rage boiling over. "You'll regret this," he screamed, diving toward me. "Freeze," Harris shouted. But David didn't freeze. His hands closed around my throat, squeezing hard. My breath caught, panic exploding in my chest. "Sarah," Emily cried, her voice hoarse but desperate. The officers surged forward, but the struggle made it dangerous. One wrong move, and the bullets could hit me instead. My vision blurred, black spots forming at the edges. My legs kicked weakly, my fingernails clawing at his arms. His face was inches from mine, twisted, demonic. "You should have stayed mine," he hissed. And then, a gunshot split the air. The gunshot thundered through the room, deafening, shaking the walls. David's grip on my throat loosened instantly. His eyes widened, shock flashing across his face. For a heartbeat, time froze. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Then he stumbled backward, his hand clutching his side. Blood seeped through his shirt, spreading fast. Emily screamed, covering her mouth with trembling hands. Mom staggered toward me, wrapping her good arm around my shoulders as I collapsed to the floor, coughing violently. "Sarah, baby, breathe, just breathe," Mom cried, her voice breaking. I gasped for air, every breath like fire in my chest. My vision swam, but I forced myself to look up. David was still standing, swaying unsteadily. His face was pale, his teeth clenched in rage and pain. You think this stops me?" he growled, his voice hoarse. "You think one bullet can end me?" The officers shouted, "Stay down. Drop your hands." But David didn't listen. He staggered toward the bed, his eyes scanning the floor. My heart dropped. He was searching for the knife. "No." I rasped, my voice raw. Emily lunged forward, her body hitting the bed as she reached underneath, shoving the knife further out of sight. David roared in frustration, his body jerking with pain. "Stay back." Harris barked, his gun still raised. "Don't make us fire again." David's chest heaved, blood dripping from his wound, but his eyes burned with the same twisted fire. He wasn't giving up. Not yet. Mom tightened her hold on me, whispering fiercely in my ear. "Don't look at him. Look at me. You're safe. You're safe now." But I couldn't tear my gaze away. After everything, after all the years of silence, I couldn't believe he was still standing, still threatening, still dangerous. And then in one last desperate move, David lunged. Not for the knife, not for me, but for Emily. "No!" I screamed, pushing forward even though my body shook with weakness. The officers shouted again, their voices sharp, overlapping. "Drop her, David. Don't move." But he grabbed Emily by the wrist, yanking her close. She screamed, her body jerking against his hold. The room exploded into chaos. Officers surged forward, guns raised. Emily's cries filled the air. Mom's sobs shook against my ear. My heart hammered so hard it felt like it might burst. And then, another gunshot rang out. The second gunshot split the air, louder than thunder, sharper than a scream. For a heartbeat, silence followed. No one moved. No one breathed. Then Emily's cry shattered the stillness. "Ah!" My chest collapsed. I lurched forward, reaching for her. "Emily." But she was still standing, trembling violently, her eyes wide with shock. Her hands shook as she clutched her arm, where blood was trickling down from a shallow graze. Relief and terror crashed together inside me. She was hurt, but not mortally. David, though, wasn't so lucky. The bullet had hit him square in the shoulder, his body jerking backward from the force. He staggered, releasing Emily with a howl of rage and pain. His knees buckled, his blood splattering across the carpet. "Stay down," Detective Harris shouted again, his voice booming like iron. But David, stubborn even in defeat, struggled to his knees, one hand pressing against his bleeding wounds, the other clawing at the floor as though he could pull himself back into control. His teeth clenched, his face pale as chalk, yet his eyes still burned with hatred. "You'll regret this," he hissed, his words slurred with blood. "All of you, especially you, Sarah." His gaze locked on me, and a chill raced down my spine. Even broken and bleeding, his words cut as deeply as ever. "No," I whispered, my throat raw. "I won't regret telling the truth anymore." Emily collapsed into Mom's arms, sobbing. Mom stroked her hair with her good hand, whispering comfort through her own tears. "You're safe now, baby. You're safe." But I knew we weren't safe. Not yet. Because David was still breathing. The officers rushed forward, forcing him to the ground. His face hit the carpet with a sickening thud as they pinned him, twisting his arms behind his back. The knife clattered out from under the bed as one of them retrieved it with gloved hands. "Suspect in custody," an officer barked into his radio. "Multiple victims need medical immediately." The sight of David in handcuffs should have filled me with relief, but instead my chest felt hollow. Empty. Like part of me still couldn't believe it. I sank to my knees, trembling violently, the adrenaline draining from my body all at once. My lungs burned as I tried to catch my breath. "Sarah," Mom whispered, kneeling beside me, her eyes soft but urgent. "Look at me. It's over. Do you hear me? It's over." I wanted to believe her. I wanted those words to erase the years of silence, the nightmares, the threats. But as I looked at David, bleeding but smiling faintly through split lips, I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. Because monsters don't disappear just because you lock them up. Emily's broken voice cut through my thoughts. Why didn't you tell me?" Her eyes, red and swollen, met mine with pain I couldn't bear. "Sarah, all this time. Why didn't you say something?" Tears flooded my vision. I reached for her hand, but she flinched slightly, and my heart shattered. "I was scared," I whispered, my voice trembling. "He threatened me. He said if I told you, if I told anyone, he'd kill us both." And I believed him. Emily's lips quivered. "You should have trusted me." "I know," I sobbed, my chest aching. "I should have. I wanted to protect you, but, in trying to protect you, I put you in danger instead." She pulled her hand away, hugging herself, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know how to feel, Sarah. I don't know." Her words sliced deeper than David's ever could. Detective Harris crouched in front of us, his voice firm but gentler than before. "You both did what you had to do to survive tonight. And that matters. Right now, we need to get you all medical help. We'll take it from here." But David laughed. A weak, broken sound, muffled by the floor. "You think this is over? You think a pair of cuffs can stop me?" His voice grew louder, manic. "I'll finish what I started, Sarah. If not now, then later. You can't hide from me. Ever." The officers shoved him down harder, but his words clung to me like poison. My stomach twisted. As paramedics rushed in, chaos filled the room. Hands lifting Emily to check her wound, voices shouting medical codes, sirens still wailing outside. Mom was led gently away to tend to her arm, her face pale but her eyes glued to us. I sat frozen on the floor, shaking, as David's words replayed in my head like a curse. Even cuffed, bleeding, and surrounded, he still had power over me, and I hated myself for it. "Ma'am," Harris said, crouching again, his voice quieter now, almost kind. "We'll keep him locked up. He won't hurt you again. I promise." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe promises meant safety. But when I looked up, David's eyes were on me. Burning, unbroken, promising only more darkness. And then, as the officers began to drag him out, something terrifying happened. He jerked violently, twisting free from their grip with a sudden surge of strength. Blood smeared across the carpet as he wrenched one arm loose from the cuffs, roaring with rage. "David!" one of the officers shouted, reaching for him, but he was already moving straight toward me. David's roar tore through the room as he lunged toward me, one cuff still dangling from his wrist like a jagged weapon. My body froze, terror rooting me to the spot. The officers shouted, chaos erupting around me. "Get down! Stop him!" But David's eyes were locked on mine, wild and bloodshot, his teeth bared like an animal. Every nightmare I had ever buried came alive in that one moment. I scrambled backward across the carpet, my palms burning, but he was faster. His hand shot out, his fingers grazing my ankle. I screamed, kicking wildly, just managing to pull free as the officers tackled him again. The room shook with the force of bodies colliding. Harris slammed David down hard, the other two officers piling on top of him. David thrashed like a beast, his roar filling the room. "Sarah!" Emily cried, reaching for me. Blood still stained her arm, but her eyes were locked on me, terrified. I crawled toward her, gasping for air, my chest aching with every breath. Mom tried to pull us both close, her own tears streaming down her face. But even pinned, David's voice carried over the chaos. "You can't hide from me, Sarah. You'll never escape me. Do you hear me? Shut him up." Harris barked. One officer rammed his knee into David's back, another finally snapping the cuffs back tight. David howled in rage, his voice cracking with pain but still filled with venom. His blood smeared across the carpet, his shirt drenched, but he kept fighting, kept screaming. I clutched Emily's trembling hand, my own body shaking so hard I thought I might fall apart. My mind screamed at me, "He's never going to stop. Not until one of us is dead." The paramedics shouted from the doorway, urging the officers to get him out so they could treat us. But David wasn't finished. Even as they dragged him up, half conscious from blood loss, he spat his final words like a curse. "This isn't the end. Sarah, when I get out, I'll kill you. Both of you. I swear it." Emily whimpered, burying her face in Mom's shoulder. I wanted to cover my ears to block out the sound, but the words sank deep into my bones. The officers hauled him toward the door, his body jerking, his eyes still locked on me even as his strength faded. I thought it was finally over. I thought the nightmare was being carried out of our lives. But then, as they dragged him through the hall, one of the officers slipped on the blood-slick floor. David twisted violently, seizing the moment. And before anyone could react, he snatched the officer's gun from its holster. The metallic click echoed like a death knell. David staggered back into the doorway, the gun shaking in his blood-soaked hands. His eyes burned, locked directly on me. The room froze. Everyone knew what was about to happen. The room turned to stone. David stood in the doorway, blood pouring down his shirt, his breath ragged. But in his hands, shaking, trembling, yet deadly, was the officer's gun. And the barrel was pointed straight at me. My heart stopped. The world shrank until there was only the circle of black staring back at me. My breaths came shallow and fast, like air was slipping out of the room. The officers froze, their hands hovering in the air, their faces pale. Harris's voice cut through the tension, steady but urgent. "David, put the gun down. This doesn't have to end like this." David's mouth curled into a sneer. His voice was hoarse but dripping with venom. "Oh, it ends tonight. I decide how." Emily whimpered, clinging to Mom's side. Mom's lips trembled as she whispered a prayer under her breath, her eyes never leaving the weapon. And me? My body trembled, my hands cold as ice. Every nightmare, every memory of his threats, his touch, his voice. Everything came crashing down on me in that single moment. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. He had me again. David's eyes burned into mine, wild and desperate. "You ruined everything, Sarah. You should have stayed quiet, just like I told you. But you couldn't, could you? Now you'll pay the price." His finger twitched against the trigger. "No." Emily screamed. "Please don't." "Shut up." David barked, swinging the gun toward her. Something inside me snapped. For years I had stayed silent. For years I had let him control me with fear, with threats, with shame. But not anymore. Not tonight. I forced my shaking legs to move, stepping in front of Emily. My voice broke, but I made it strong enough to cut through the chaos. Don't touch her. If you want someone, take me. Leave her alone. Emily gasped behind me. Sara, no. David's eyes widened for a moment, then narrowed with twisted satisfaction. Always the hero, he spat. Fine. I'll finish what I started with you. His hand steadied. His finger pressed harder against the trigger. And then, David, Harris shouted. Think about what you're doing. You pull that trigger, and you'll never leave this house alive. David laughed, a low, broken sound. Maybe that's the point. The officers shifted, their fingers twitching near their own weapons, but no one dared move too quickly. Time slowed. My pulse thundered in my ears. My mind screamed at me to run, to hide, but my feet stayed rooted. And in that stillness, I remembered his words from years ago. If she finds out, I'll kill both of you. I remembered the nights I cried into my pillow, the fear that chained me, the silence that protected him. I remembered Emily's hurt voice only hours ago. Why didn't you tell me? And suddenly, I wasn't just scared. I was furious. Furious at what he stole. Furious at what he almost stole from Emily. Furious at how long I let fear hold me down. I lifted my chin, meeting his eyes with a strength I didn't know I had. You don't own me anymore, David. His lips curled. We'll see. His fingers squeezed. The crack of a gunshot shattered the air. I braced for the pain, for the searing heat of a bullet tearing through me. But it never came. Instead, David jerked. His eyes widened in shock. His grip loosened, the gun clattering to the floor. Another officer's shot had found its mark. David staggered, his chest blooming red, his body swaying like a felled tree. His eyes still locked on me, but the fire in them flickered. No, he rasped, collapsing to his knees. Not like this. He slumped forward, his body crashing onto the floor, blood spreading beneath him. Silence swallowed the room. For a moment, no one breathed. No one moved. Then Emily sobbed, her body shaking against me. Mom sank to her knees, tears streaming down her face. The officers lowered their guns slowly, their chests heaving. Harris stepped forward, kneeling beside David, checking for a pulse. He looked up, his eyes heavy. He's gone. The words echoed, bouncing through the room, settling into my bones. David was gone. The monster who haunted my nights, who silenced my voice, who nearly destroyed us, was gone. But instead of relief, I felt empty. I collapsed onto the floor, my body shaking, my lungs struggling for air. The weight of years pressed down on me all at once, crushing me. Emily wrapped her arms around me, sobbing into my shoulder. It's over, she whispered, though her voice shook. It's really over. Mom pulled us both close, rocking us gently despite her injuries. My girls, my brave girls. But I couldn't feel brave. Not yet. Because when the gunshot echoed, it wasn't just David who fell. It was years of silence, of fear, of shame. And I didn't know how to live without those chains yet. The paramedics rushed in, tending to Emily's arm, wrapping Mom's bandages tighter, checking me for bruises. But all I could do was stare at David's body lying crumpled on the floor. Was this justice? Or just another scar? Hours later, after statements were given, after the flashing lights faded, after the house emptied, it was just us. Me, Emily, Mom. We sat in silence in the living room, the weight of everything heavy in the air. Finally, Emily broke it. Her voice was soft, but it cut deep. You should have told me, Sarah. We could have stopped him sooner. Tears welled in my eyes. I know. And I'm so sorry. I thought I was protecting you, but I only made things worse. Emily's hand found mine, hesitant at first, then tighter. We can't change the past. But we can heal. Together. Mom nodded, tears streaking her cheeks. No more secrets. No more silence. We've survived this and we'll survive the healing too. Together. For the first time in years, I believed her. The silence that once chained me now felt like space. Space to breathe, to grow, to speak. And as I looked at Emily and Mom, I realized something. David hadn't won. Because I was still here. Emily was still here. Mom was still here. And we had each other. That was more powerful than anything he ever took from me. I wiped my tears, turning toward Emily. I promise you, from now on, I'll never stay silent again. She nodded, squeezing my hand tighter. The nightmare was over, but the lesson remained. Silence protects monsters. Speaking out destroys them. To anyone listening, to anyone watching my story right now, hear me. If you are carrying a secret that's destroying you, speak. Don't wait like I did. Don't let fear win. Your voice is your power, and no one can take that from you. So that's my story. My name is Sarah, I'm 22 years old, and I live in Atlanta, Georgia. If you've been following my story, thank you for listening, for feeling with me, for walking this hard road with me. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button so you don't miss more stories like mine. And before you go, tell me, which part of the country are you watching from? I'd love to know. This has been my journey. And remember, no matter how dark the night, your voice is the light. The end.